Morgan here. So I just quickly wanted to talk about a few potential collapse scenarios that we probably want to keep an eye on. I'm really not into fear-mongering. You know, these are things that I've been watching closely, that other people in the prepper world that I respect have been watching closely, and I just wanted to kind of bring a few of these things to your attention. So, you know, a lot of us really like to talk about, you know, EMPs and nuclear war and all these things, and these are all things that we really do need to watch as well, but there are a few sort of collapse scenarios, either personally or nationally or worldly or whatever, that we kind of need to watch. So here they are. Number one is going to be the collapse of the power grid. I think that some people underestimate how easy it is to actually collapse our power grid system. It can happen just through a little USB. It doesn't have to be like, you know, people storming the gates and turning off our electricity manually. It can happen through hackers through a little USB and hacking our system. It happens, and people are aware that people can do this, and they're trying to always increase the security, of course, but having our power grid system totally collapse is a really big deal, okay? What relies on electricity? I mean, we live in an electricity-centric world. Everything relies on electricity. Charging this cell phone that I use, the internet, you know, cooking food, making food, producing food, the lights over our head, our air conditioning, our heat. So many things rely on our power grid. So it's incredibly important that we start thinking of alternative methods and really taking a look at our power grid in general, and you know what we rely on when it comes to electricity and how our power grid is connected. You know, all of these things we really need to look at, and we need to be as prepared for that as possible. And I know we all like to think that we are with our candles and our flashlights and these things, but you know, having a total collapse of the power grid is going to be an astronomical disaster. The next one is going to be an oil collapse. Now, I want to use Venezuela as an example. Let's see, in December of 2017, they had a drop in oil production by 216,000 barrels a day. That's a lot. Okay, that is basically an oil collapse. You know, they are not producing as much oil as they used to, and it's a bad situation. You know, Venezuela, you know, let's despite, you know, all the wars and, you know, people going hungry and all this stuff, and let's look at the, you know, oil production has dropped by 216,000 barrels a day as of December 2017. That's astronomical, and that could happen anywhere. You think it can't? It really could. And, you know, let's think about all the things that rely on oil. You know, the trucks that bring in our food and water and all of our other goods. Those are all things that rely on oil. Okay, and if we don't have oil anymore, then that could be an extreme collapse. You know, the world that you know is going to be completely different. You know, your cars that you drive, everything. And, you know, I don't think we're anywhere near the point of having any sort of alternative sources. Okay, and the next one I want to talk about is a economic collapse. This one really just, I don't think it's talked about nearly enough. Here's a few things that could potentially happen if there's an economic collapse. And this is going to be on a U.S. national scale. If the dollar loses its value rapidly, it could create hyperinflation. Everything is costing more, but people are not making more. That's big inflation. Now, if the US dollar were to rapidly lose its value, that would create a hyperinflation, which is not good for anybody. A bank run could force banks to close or even go out of business, cutting off lending and even cash withdrawals. The internet could become paralyzed with a super virus, preventing emails and online transactions. Terrorist attacks or a massive oil embargo could halt interstate trucking. Grocery stores would soon run out of food. Widespread violence could erupt across the nation. And some believe, now this one is interesting, some believe the Federal Reserve, the president, or an international conspiracy are driving the United States towards economic ruin. If that is the case, the economy would collapse in as little as a week. A week. An economic collapse in a week? That seems extreme, right? But it's because it's a run on confidence that debts will be repaid, food and gas will be available when you need it, and that you'll get paid for this week's work, whatever. If a large enough piece of that stops for even several days, it creates a chain reaction that leads to a rapid collapse. Okay, so let's say that debts aren't getting repaid. The food's not being delivered to the stores. The gas isn't being delivered to the gas stations. We're not having these basic functions. It's kind of like the oil collapse. You're not getting these basic functions, so you're having this extreme collapse of society because our basic needs suddenly aren't being taken care of. We can't just go down to the grocery store and buy stuff. It's a huge chain reaction if it were a nationwide economic collapse. Now, not just nationwide economic collapse, but personal financial collapse. Like, let's say you lose your job. What then? You're going to go and look for a new job, of course, but what do you do in the meantime? I've actually known lots of people who have actually needed to use their preps, the food and water that they have prepped, just to get by while they're looking for another job. That is part of prepping. I encourage you to go and do research on your own and figure out what you need to do in order to be collapse proof, with the oil and the power grid and financially, there's lots of things we can do. And here are just a few tips just to kind of get you going here. Yeah, so there are some things that all of these things have in common when it comes to how to prepare for them. And here they are. Having alternative energy sources, alternative ways to cool your home, alternative ways to heat your home, alternative ways to get electricity if you need it, wind, solar, hydro, all those things. And then storing food and water, but not just storing food and water, actually having ways to grow your own food or to procure food or find food, having those survival skills. And that's kind of leads into the next one, having those survival skills. So, knowing how to find the food and water, how to have your wits about you, communication skills. And I'm going to talk in another video about some skills that I think are overlooked by preppers, but really gaining as much skills as you possibly can, and finding alternative ways to the lifestyle that you now live in. Okay, if the electricity were to go out, could you really last a long time, if forever? Be honest with yourself. If we were to have a huge oil crisis where you can't just go down to the store, how are you going to get your food and water and other goods and supplies? Do you already have your goods and supplies, here at home, or in your bug out bag at your bug out location or whatever? How are you going to get around if your car is not working? Do you have a bicycle? Do you have, a skateboard? Do you have working legs? What do you have? And then, what sort of assets do you have that maybe you'll need to keep an eye on, just in case of those economic collapses? If the bank's closed and you can't get your cash out, do you have cash on hand? There's all these things that we need to seriously consider. Thank you so much for watching. If you really like my videos, please consider supporting me down on Patreon, link in the description, and come find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and my website at Preparedness.com. And please let me know your comments down below about all this. And again, please go do your own research and get better prepared. Conquer tomorrow by preparing today. Talk to you later. Bye.